Incredible! A transparent ghost appeared in a restaurant in broad daylight, unnoticed by everyone except a nervous young chef who spotted her. Clearly, this creature was trouble. It quickly set its sights on a female customer, extending a long tongue and giving her an unwanted kiss. The chef, realizing the danger, feigned a kiss towards the woman, thus averting a crisis. But the monster turned and crawled towards him. He dared not look directly at it, for if it discovered he could see her, death would be his only outcome. The chef pretended to be calm, assuring the creature he couldn't see it. Only then did the monster shift its target, just as it was about to attack the woman again. Strangely, a man in a suit entered the restaurant, and the monster locked onto him instead. What's worse? More of these creatures entered the restaurant. They all surrounded the man in the suit, their intentions clear. The chef's heart pounded in his chest. What had this man done to attract the attention of these monsters? Unsurprisingly, the man in the suit was about to die, because once these things appear, someone will always become a target. This was the first time the chef had seen so many of them. Something big was about to happen in town. Without a second thought, to understand what was happening and save the villagers, the chef took a risk. He secretly followed the man in the suit to his home. But to his surprise, after a while, the man walked out unharmed. Curious, the chef decided to break into his house and see what was going on. The house was ordinary, but it felt strangely cold. Suddenly, a sub-zero gale hit him, sending shivers down his spine. The icy wind then rushed into another room. Oh my god, it froze the doorknob solid. After some thought, the chef risked becoming an ice statue to open the door. The room was like an icebox, and small animals were frozen solid. Then, something strange happened. There was a glowing green hole in the corner. The director originally wanted him to stick his head in, but the chef bravely managed to slowly insert his hand. A powerful suction suddenly gripped his hand. It was a good thing he didn't stick his head in. He yanked his arm back, and the black, vine-like substance instantly filled the room. The chef had only one thought: run! Just as the hole was about to swallow him, he escaped. But danger was closing in again. He quickly hid in a closet. Peeking through the crack, countless monsters poured out of the hole. The chef held his breath, not daring to make a sound. If they discovered him, he would be dead. Finally, the monsters all left the house. Could this be a gateway to hell? He continued searching the house for clues, and discovered that the frozen animals had come back to life. The walls were covered with photos of the dead, but why were they all stuck here? The chef was puzzled. It seemed the man in the suit was no ordinary person. This disaster was likely connected to him. The chef inadvertently found an unusual calendar, and the missing page was tomorrow, the 15th. Something big was definitely about to happen in town, so Thomas rushed to tell the sheriff. Because he could distinguish between evil and benevolent spirits, he sensed a major disaster was coming tomorrow. To stop it, Thomas sought out his girlfriend's best friend. She was a psychic. Maybe she could find some clues in her dreams. When his friend entered her dream, a terrifying sight completely terrified her. Arriving at his friend's room, several monsters appeared again. They hovered around the two sleeping girls. Thomas saw the terrifying monsters, but he could only pretend he saw nothing. Otherwise, he would face their wrath, and his life wouldn't be worth living. The disaster was likely imminent. Sure enough, on their way back, a woman, barefoot, desperately ran and screamed for help. Two unidentified vicious dogs were chasing her. A gunshot rang out, and by the time Thomas arrived, the woman and the two dogs were dead. The man said he intended to shoot the dogs, but accidentally shot the woman. Receiving the report, the sheriff and his men quickly arrived at the scene. At that moment, Thomas thought of the man in the suit. It's the disaster that guy brought. After identifying the suspect, the sheriff immediately issued a warrant for his arrest. Arresting him would stop it all. However, Thomas didn't think it was that simple. Sure enough, as soon as he got home, big trouble arrived. He found a handgun inexplicably on the floor. He went into the bathroom and got a shock. The man in the suit was lying in his bathtub, shot in the back. Thomas was about to report it, but on second thought, wouldn't he become the murderer if he did? That way, he couldn't stop the disaster. Clearly, someone was trying to frame him. With no other choice, he wrapped up the body, threw it out the window, then put it in the trunk, drove it to a remote abandoned warehouse, and decided to hide the body first. Unexpectedly, on the way back, he saw those monsters again. They were everywhere. It seemed the disaster was about to happen, but he didn't know that. That night, the sheriff was attacked, and the scene had no trace of the killer. The next day, Thomas returned to the man in the suit's house to look for clues. He found cockroaches crawling all over the refrigerator, and inside was a box of teeth, scaring him into wanting to leave immediately. But then, next to the refrigerator, the man in the suit suddenly appeared. Fortunately, Thomas knew he couldn't hurt him, because he was already a ghost. Unexpectedly, his words completely enraged the ghost. Physical attacks won't work, so let's use magic damage. With a howl, everything in the room exploded. The man in the suit used the refrigerator to smash at him, smashing Thomas's phone to the floor, and the sink as well. This won't do. Thomas noticed a gas leak from the gas pipe on the floor. In a moment of crisis, he leaped out of the window. The next second, the whole house exploded. However, in the explosion, he seemed to have discovered the evil spirit's secret, so he quickly returned to the abandoned warehouse, opened the man in the suit's poetry book, and found a damaged pinion on him. This was exactly the same as the tattoo on the sheriff's assistant, Away's hand. Could they be in cahoots? Then, Thomas thought of his girlfriend. It was she who had asked about this on that day. Realizing his girlfriend was in danger, he rushed to town to save her. As a result, as soon as he arrived at the mall, he saw a terrifying sight. In the corner of the crowded mall, a transparent evil spirit appeared. More monsters kept crawling out of the black hole. Thomas was completely terrified. What do they want? Just then, a monster came out of the elevator, directly in front of him. Clearly, the monsters had discovered him. Then, several gunshots rang out in the mall. The sudden threat caused people to scream and flee in terror, trying to escape the mall, but no one could escape, because all the doors were locked. Then, a masked bandit with a gun started shooting wildly. Luckily, he was shooting at the ceiling. No one was hit. Thomas remembered his girlfriend was nearby, so he quickly drew his gun to fight back. While the bandit was reloading, he quickly shot the bandit, hitting him in the shoulder. Then, the monsters all rushed towards Thomas, trying to stop him. The bandit reacted and quickly reloaded. At the critical moment, Thomas, fending off the monsters, pushed them away and aimed his shot. Finally, he shot the bandit dead. He rushed to his girlfriend's cafe, saw the bullet-ridden walls, and his heart was filled with fear. But the next second, seeing his girlfriend safe and sound, he breathed a sigh of relief. Then, the soul of the girl who was killed by the vicious dog came out. Then a monster suddenly darted out, following the girl's soul's guidance. He quickly opened the truck bed and found tons of bombs inside. If it exploded, the entire mall would be blown to pieces. He understood everything. Those people were puppets chosen by the evil spirits. Officer Away, marked with pinion letters, didn't die when they used him to lure Hell's clients. He was the last puppet. Sure enough, the evil spirit quickly possessed Away. Then, turning around, he fired several shots directly at them. The bomb timer had less than 3 minutes left. Without time to think, Thomas, though hit several times, still managed to drive the car out of the mall. At this point, only 40 seconds remained. He floored the gas pedal, needing to get the car as far away from the crowd as possible. But unexpectedly, Away had somehow climbed onto the car. He climbed onto the window and fired directly inside. Luckily, he didn't hit anything. With just 10 seconds left before the explosion, Thomas opened the car door and jumped out. The car flew off the road, plunging into a deep ditch. Accompanied by a huge explosion, the fire sent the last puppet, Alan, to hell. The crisis was finally over. A few days later, when Thomas woke up, his girlfriend was at the hospital, worried about him. The chief also dealt with the suited man's body, clearing Thomas of suspicion. He thus became the town's great hero. He could finally spend all his time with his girlfriend. Although life seemed blissful, there was a fact he had to face. A few days later, the chief found him, revealing that during the shooting at the mall, his girlfriend had been unfortunately shot. Thomas had only seen her soul. Actually, he had already known the truth, but he lacked the courage to face it. But souls eventually leave this world. Finally, his girlfriend reluctantly floated out the window, transforming into a flock of flying saucers and disappearing into the air.